Hello, and welcome to another episode of Processing with Sam and Malik. A weekly take on life through the lens of husbands, fathers, Philly sports fans, and most importantly, believers. Because we keep the main thing here on Process. Now, as always, this episode is brought to you by Sam's Community TV, creating content to establish a community through genuine relationship building. And before we start tonight's episode, I want to ask you to please make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification button. Subscription button keeps you connected to the community, and the notification button will notify you anytime one of our episodes are airing. We would love for you to join us. Now, if you enjoyed the episode while you are watching, please hit the like button and help us defeat algorithm. So with that, my friend. Oh, last but not least, folks, I'm going to drop the link in the comments section. So if you want to join us for any topic catches your fancy, you want to cam up, please, we'd love to have you. So Malik, how you doing, my friend?
Man, this might be Christmas. We got this, or Christmas or Halloween. I'm not even sure. We got the draft going on today, and we got Sixers game 3 going on today, and I'm a lot more optimistic than I probably have any right to be, but that's what happens when it's the middle of the day and nothing has happened yet. So I'm excited about what may be a good evening.
What may be a good evening, and if I'm not mistaken, I know the Phils I think are playing.
Phils won.
Look at that.
Phils won.
Things to come, right? Phils jumped out 5-0 as I'm looking at the final score here. So the Phils jumping out in the day game to set the stage of what's happening tonight for both of our Eagles and our Sixers.
That makes me feel scared, man, because we don't ever get like a 3-for-3 day here in Philly, man.
Listen, that's what I'm saying. It's something. It's always sunny in Philadelphia, and today is the sunniest of sunniest days. And
that wasn't made. That show was not made in Philadelphia. Those cats definitely were not talking about Philadelphia. They might talk about Philadelphia, Mississippi. They were talking about Philadelphia in the Bible. They wasn't talking about Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
They did their research by reading about the city.
Yeah,
they did not have a first-hand account. So, which one would you like to get in first? I'm actually gonna let you decide, my friend.
Man, listen. I think the more substantive conversation, at least today, is probably going to be the Sixers. So let's get. Not that the Eagles are the appetizer, but we probably can talk about them first.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
do it. So what do we know? Tonight is the 2024 NFL Draft. Our boys obviously are, under the supreme leadership of one Howie Roseman, are looking to improve this roster. I think we've made of most teams. I think the Eagles have been given a solid grade in terms of free agency and trade sort of acquisitions. And I think right now, the next test in the offseason is what you do on the day's biggest day, draft day.
Yeah.
So I'm curious from your perspective, are you thinking there's going to be a lot of movement from Howie? Do you think we stand pat with the positions that we have? How do you think, what's the strategy? You know what I mean?
I don't think Howie Roseman, I got an alert. You know how when you go to sleep and when you wake up and you see your phone, you're like, let me just go and check my messages or whatever notifications. Like, did Donald Trump fire a tweet off? Did my mom send something late at night, like a prayer request or whatever it is? I think I first woke up this morning and I already saw Howie Roseman, or the Philadelphia Eagles, are expected to trade up actively from 22. My man does not sit still. So the Eagles have 3 picks in the first 53. I think they've got 22, 50, 53. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that they will necessarily trade the bulk of their second round, but I could absolutely see it being, if the Eagles, like in a Jalen Carter situation, are getting close, they target a player that they believe can help them immediately, and he starts to slip down, there is zero chance in the world I believe the Eagles are going to sit pat at 22 and draft using their own pick. No way. And they probably shouldn't, Sam. They probably shouldn't.
So saying they probably shouldn't simply means that you need to be going all in? Is that how I interpret that?
I mean, so you tell me, right? You spent $100 million, whatever it was, on Devontae Smith. I saw today that the Eagles are apparently working on an extension for A.J. Brown, right? We got Saquon Barkley. Right, exactly, right? Listen, just keep him happy, dog. He's clearly a top 5, top 6 receiver. Just keep him happy.
Keep the main thing.
Dog, like we get to the point where like, yo, just trade him if you don't want to be here, don't be here. We say that, and then Todd Pinkston and James Thrash are out there in the MVP championship. Dog, I don't miss those days. I don't miss those days. Right? I used to buy Madden, and the first thing I would do was trade for new receivers. First thing I would do is trade for new receivers. So you got Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert's getting injury prone and aging. Yeah. He's still a great player, but he's aging. Lane Johnson's probably a year or two away. Yeah. And then whatever you believe you're going to get from Darius Slay, you aren't getting anything but heartache and pain from James Bradbury. So I think they believe that they've got a window and they're trying to either go through it right now or extend it a little bit wider. But you're not going to do that with a player who is going to be developmental at 22. You got to go get somebody.
I think that's a phenomenal take. And the reason I use the word phenomenal is because it seems to align with a lot of what I'm hearing relating to the cornerback position specifically.
Yep.
And also that if you look at the history of the NFL, there have been very few cornerbacks that have panned out to be all-time or special type players that were drafted after the 20th pick.
Yep.
So I think it's fascinating that you're looking at the team, looking at the money that's being spent, saying, okay, obviously ownership seems to be financially committed to putting out a product that should be competing at the highest level. You have this one last opportunity to sort of see, or the one last opportunity to fill the biggest holes that still exists in your eyes in terms of your personnel. You immediately talked about the cornerback position and the fact that we're at the 22 spot, and the history of the NFL says if you really want a corner, you got to move up to get them. That's why I thought that was a phenomenal take. You know what I mean? So
I mean, the Patriots drafted Christian Gonzalez, I think it was last year. He was on his way to being an absolute stalwart position. I think he got hurt. We see what Sauce Gardner has meant to the Jets, right? So you can go get a guy. You can get a guy to play the position, or you can get someone who's going to be a monument, somebody who's going to lock the position down. And we haven't had anyone like that in quite some time.
Agreed. Now, you do know, as of right now, the Eagles' top trade targets are one Patrick Surtain, cornerback spot, Marcus Epps at safety from the Las Vegas Raiders,
who was formerly an Eagle.
Pardon?
Former Eagle.
Oh, right. We just lost him like what, last year, 2 years?
He was a 7th round pick, I believe, a few years ago. Developed here and then moved on.
Right. He had to get his money, which good for him. And Cesar Ruiz is another safe or a center out of New Orleans. So, it's funny, the center that they're thinking about as a top trade target. It's like how are we not prepared? Or is part of the replacement process include trading for a piece, right? Because you almost sort of need something ready-made, or do you kind of look at it and say, look, this Jason Kelce thing isn't that surprising,
right?
And even if he said, I'm playing this year, what could you possibly expect? So should we have been more prepared, or is all part of the NFL strategy to say, okay, when I need a piece, I go get it because that's how this business works?
I think that's Howie's strategy. I think offensively, we've drafted Devontae Smith, who's a Pro Bowler. Has he been a Pro Bowler? I don't know that he's been a Pro Bowler. Pro Bowler has been a little bit diluted. But we've not had success drafting long-term talent. On defense, I don't know that we've seen anybody who has kind of filled that Pro Bowl space that has been an Eagles pick. And so we've gone out, and this was something we talked about weeks ago. Howie has been very good at finding pieces, whether it be late rounds or augmenting the offense, but on defense, we've had to struggle a little bit, right? Jalen Carter is a high early pick, but we don't know what he's going to be. We hope he's going to be something. We've not seen anything in the linebacker position. The secondary has been a bunch of piecemeal guys. So we hope that those guys become realized, but most of our success has been on the offensive side of the ball. Most of it's been there. So we'll see. I think his philosophy has been squarely, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to draft offensive talent because I've been good there. I'm Jalen Hurts all along the offensive line, Dallas Goedert, wide receiver to a degree more recently. And then I'm going to go ahead and get what I need on defense to make my team competitive.
That's fair. I will say it seems as if he has made a concentrated effort to shore up the defense via the draft in the last few years in terms of getting the Philadelphia Bulldogs, assembling them. So, you have to sort of give him credit in acknowledging that you cannot do this thing one-sided all the way through. At some point, draft capital has to be spent on defense.
Yeah.
And again, I still acknowledge that he was drafting guys that were 5-star guys coming out of high school, champions playing at the highest level in the highest league. So I'm hopeful Nakobe Dean has a breakout season or at least flashes as a real guy and contributor this year. Because that one is a little, it's the injury bug. It's something that's just prevalent in the NFL. You just hope that that's not going to be the, summation of his career.
Right.
Jordan Davis, he has to bounce back this year.
Yeah, we do.
What happened, but it can't happen again. And I think even with Jalen Carter, because I know he had rookie accolades, we know he tailed off. And we know he tailed off considerably. And so, I'm hoping that maybe the scheme is better fit for some of these guys. And, even with some veterans behind them in the linebacking core, maybe that does help them in terms of, who that veteran leader who's seen the game before, who can tell them from behind them, sort of what's going on and what to prepare for. I do think you're going to have a different culture with this team. And so that's something I'm really fascinated to see, especially in losing some of the guys that we've lost. So, I think that there's an identity component that I'm fascinated with. And again, this draft, whether or not we utilize all the picks we have or leverage them to hit key guys and just call it a day and say, this is what we got and this is what we're going to work with. This is, to me, I think we are both feeling the team is all in. And so the draft should also be indicative of that.
The fact that you're all
and I think it'll be very evident if they start drafting for any other reason than win now, right? Like,
so,
So
I think when you look at the draft tonight, and I'm be very curious. Our track record has been line, generally defensive, occasionally offensive line. It has been wide receiver. And when I say line, defensive line, I'm going to include like edge rushers. I'm including those guys too. So not just like Jordan Davis, but Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. You had Nolan Smith at the end of the first. So guys who can get after the quarterback a little bit, right? You've not seen a corner drafted. You've definitely not seen a linebacker drafted. We're not drafting a quarterback. So I'll be curious when you talk about all in, can they go all in with, in your estimation, if they go out and draft an offensive lineman, right? If they go out and draft a guard that may be able to slide to tackle when they expect Lane Johnson, like the guy's not going to contribute immediately unless there's an injury, but he's not going to be expected to play right away. Or do you draft an all in and say like a Cooper DeJean or what's the Kenyon Mitchell, I believe his name is, the corner from Toledo. If you go out and get him, do you think that all of a sudden the Eagles consider, is that an all in move? So when I see all in, a receiver is not all in because he's a third receiver at best.
Correct.
If I see all in, offensive line does not tell me all in, right? Because he's not likely going to supplant, a Cam Jurgens or a Tyler Steen or a Lane Johnson unless there's an injury. So what position is all in for you? Because the Eagles have a track record. So within that track record, we're going to see certain moves, and can they be all in that space?
So for me, I think if I see a draft pick that either is expected to compete for a starting position and or is a starter just through camp, then in my mind, they pick that player with an idea that we are going to need them to contribute immediately.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure which position it is. I think we usually see a ramp up for rookies in the NFL. This is not the NBA. You know, if you're drafted at the certain position or a certain, if you're a lottery pick, you're starter. There are no lottery picks who aren't starters, right? Outside of Darko Milicic, right? Like that's not how that works. So,
Darko.
But in the NFL, it's how can you pick up the games sometimes? You know, like are you able to really get this thing under your belt, because they're not going to put you out there if you're not ready. But there are certain picks, top 5 guys, where you're thinking these guys, I'm plugging them in immediately, and they'll just figure it out on the field. And so I think if the Eagles were to pick a player who, again, I think there are multiple positions where we could use improvement. But if they pick a guy that's, to me, on the field and getting real reps by the week 2, and again, even in the selection, the expectation is that this is a person who's going to come in and immediately make an impact on this team, then I believe they were all in. That's how
I would love to see the Eagles. So there's a lot of cornerbacks, whether it be from Alabama, from the SEC in general, right? We talked about Cooper. We talked about Kenyon Mitchell. I don't know that there's a guy who distinguishes himself enough for the Eagles to get high enough to make it worth it.
Got it.
So they'd have to get into the top 10 to make it worth it. If I based on what I believe the Eagles' profile is, they're not drafting a quarterback. They're not drafting a running back. Offensive line doesn't scream all in, although there are guys at the offensive line that you can hope maybe one guy slides down. Joe Alt, top tackle from Notre Dame, I believe. There's a guy from Penn State. He's not going to be there. And I think the Eagles believe in Jeff Stout, who's going to go out and be like, I'm going to make this guy into an all-pro regardless of whether he's been that pedigree before, you know, like a Mailata. I think if the Eagles go out and somehow, I like the edge rusher from UCLA, Latu. I don't want to mispronounce his name. There's also a couple corners that I really like, but I would just like to see the Eagles focus on a performing, ready-made defensive player so that we can start to infuse some youth and talent. And when you have a competent defensive coordinator, which I believe Vic Fangio is, competence going to be enough, right? Because this offense right now, as it is, without any more changes, should go get you 30, right? So now let's go get some dogs on the defense. That's it.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. I do think that you could potentially solidify your offensive line either with a marginal starter or someone, because here's the thing about this team. We know here's the thing about how the Eagles are designed currently. They are an offensive team. Period.
No question.
This team is going to rely on the offense to score points. So an issue, if you have an injury to your offensive line, do you have another guy? Because this team still relies on your offense. Yeah. So there is a scenario where I could look at an offensive lineman as still an all-in situation if they believe we are just going to load up on teams and they are not going to be able to get us off the ball. That's how we're going to win games.
That's a thought. You know,
I think when you have a Saquon, maybe you accept the fact that running should be part of your diet, right? Like you can heavy dose them with the running game and say, this is real football where you run out the clock. Listen, the Eagles could potentially orchestrate quarter-long drives, man.
Well, they could, but I don't think they're built that way. I mean, the Eagles, Saquon, you could argue the Eagles need a wide receiver. And if God forbid Devontae or A.J. Brown gets hurt, you don't have another dude to slide outside and even be a facsimile of them, right? But you do have Saquon Barkley, who's caught, 60, 70, 80. I think he caught 90 balls a couple of years ago, right? So if they put him in passing situations, I believe that has to be part of the offense to supplement what you don't have as a third down receiver. So you put him in that space, and literally in space, he's going to be able to take advantage of linebackers because he's been a mismatch every single time with far less offensive talent and a far less equipped quarterback. So you can go get an offensive lineman. And I think that's going to be valid. But you should right now today, no practice, don't even stretch. You definitely not hydrated. Go out right now and drop 30 easily.
Yeah.
Problem is the defense is going to give up just as many points.
Let me ask you something. When was the last time we hit on an edge rusher in the draft?
Expected?
No, hit on an edge rusher in the draft.
So the Eagles have had, I mean, early they've drafted.
How long did it take for him to come along?
I'm sorry?
Was it Sweat, I guess? But how long did it take for him to come along?
Well, but he was a 6th-round pick, though. Right? So I wouldn't even necessarily. Derek Barnett was a late-round, first-round pick.
And to me, he was not the guy. Like,
no.
I'm saying that edge rusher position for the Eagles, how we might not really have an eye for that.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you've seen success with, Fletcher Cox, but he was a top 15. I think he was 12. You've seen Jordan Davis, the jury's still out on him. He was also, I think, 12 or 11, somewhere in there. Jalen Carter was 7. Derek Barnett, he has been nothing. He's gone on and he'll have some success, but he's not anything worth a first-round pick to write home about. Nolan Smith is to be determined. I think he's going to get a lot of opportunity this year. And then you've had guys like Trent Cole years ago, who I think was a 5th or 6th-round pick out of Cincinnati. So there's not been a dude who you drafted expecting to go out and get sacks that actually realized that kind of expectation and potential.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. It's been a long time.
And that's why it's like I'm thinking in my brain, man, when you said edge rusher, it's like, who the Eagles drafted as an edge?
Like, even like if you remember, there was a guy, Marcus Smith. Marcus Smith was a linebacker/edge.
Out of Louisville.
Got nothing done.
He was horrific. They couldn't figure out how to play him.
Exactly.
So man, the edge, they play him at linebacker. Like, what are you exactly, man?
But Sam, that's my point. They continue to invest in these dudes, and they just not like invest in terms of draft capital, not invest in terms of re-signing. And they've not been successful. So they continue to say, we value this position enough to try it in the first round. We just have not been very good at hitting on it in the first round.
So maybe they need to not try to hit on it anymore and just say, this is a position we trade for. The part of the challenge is with the edge rushing position, you got to pay for that position.
Well, that's what you see with them going out and getting Bryce Huff this past season, right? Yeah. Because they could not draft the guy. So they had to go sign a guy who was an undrafted free agent. That's who he was. And now all of a sudden he is going to be expected. He is expected to be your sack leader. He's going to be creating the edge, the pressure off the edge.
Yeah. And you got Nolan essentially. Now, here's what, I know in interest of time, but it's also saying our top trade pieces are Sweat and Darius Slay.
Mm-hmm.
Those are our top trade pieces if we do look to try to bring in one of these other players that we seem to be coveting.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We'll see. I like the Eagles have some guys on their roster right now, and especially in the back end, they're young defensive backs that are actually really interesting. They have one guy, Rogers. He was out in Indianapolis. He was suspended for a season. He was just reinstated. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. And so they've got him. They've got Ricks, who's had experience. Keely Ringo, who's got some experience back there.
He played a little bit more this year.
I'm sorry.
I said I agree with you. I want to see Keely play a little bit more this year. He got some really raw calls. Watching him, I liked what I saw. I saw the aggression. I thought he got some ticky-tack calls, which obviously as a rookie, it plays you off the field, right? But when I think about if I thought that was a penalty, in my opinion, I'm like, man, you need to reward a corner who's playing like that. Hopefully the coaches, will look at the tape and say, you know what? That's on the ref, man. This is what we're teaching you to do.
I think for a rookie and based on the kind of the flux of having 2 defensive coordinators during the course of a season, coming in there, I think they actually do like a lot of these young dudes. Ricks and Ringo and Rogers. Ricks, Ringo, or something like a bad Beatles cover band. Ricks, Ringo, and Rogers, right? Those 3 dudes are going to get a chance to play. And then you brought back Avonte Maddox, and you still got Bradbury, although I doubt he'll be here. I think he might be a cap casualty. And then you got Slay. So I can't see them necessarily investing in a first-round defensive back unless he is absolutely a stud and he falls way down. What I think more likely, and this is going to sound ridiculous after everything we just said, if somebody like Brock Bowers slides to 15, he is the consensus number 1 tight end in the draft. He's supposed to be like the next Kelsey, the next Kittle, that kind of guy. If I've got a strength, all I want to do is more strong. I want more strength, right? More. Like no dude goes. I'm sorry.
I just want to overpower you at that point. You know,
Dog, like I already had chest day, but what's another chest day? Let me get these pecs right? So they're gonna go out and go get bigger pecs. If they can go out and add a Brock Bowers or someone like that, unless there is a dynamic edge, I would probably bet, despite everything we've said, they're going to draft offense first, and they're going to then focus on the defense later in the draft.
listen, they could approach it that way and create a team that is so good offensively that they play offense on defense.
That's basically
They
how
play defense on offense, right? So you get up early on them and then you just bleed the ball. Like you just take the air out because the defense still has to be ready for every single attack. And even if you have a couple negative plays, you can always take it over to the top and just convert and get another set of downs. It's just this team will always just be that dynamic. And so I would love to see us. And honestly, I think it would almost feel a little bit more when I look at this roster. I feel more San Francisco 49er type of football to come when I see this roster.
Well, that's saying that they're going to invest in linebackers because we don't have anybody like
on the offensive side of the ball.
Oh, offensive side of the ball. Yeah.
Offense only. On the offensive side of the ball in terms of how a team overwhelms you offensively. I think the 49ers have a unique style of play that I got to tip my hat because it appears differently on screen than a lot of other teams.
Yeah. I'm excited, man. It's going to be the appetizer. The Sixers game is on first, but I'm going to be thinking about the Eagles the entire time.
So before we get into our 76ers, why don't we just quickly hit on, the fact that NBA playoffs opening weekend, 2 games are played in every series at this point. Any surprises? What did you think? Great opening weekend. Just thoughts. Play-in through the weekend.
My favorite thing, this might be the bias in me, Sean. My favorite thing was that Miami stole a game in Boston.
How about that?
And listen, I don't have any. I'm not disillusioned to believe that they're going to lose, but there's a part where I am sure Boston went home last night and was like, like these dudes again.
Brother Malik, let me tell you something. I went to a game in that arena, and I was sitting four rows behind Grant Hill.
It's community money right there, brother.
Tell you something, okay? Are strapped now, all right? But at the time, we were flush. So the loudest arena I've ever been into. Like it's not even close. It's deafening. It is deafening in that building. I know exactly what it feels like when they go on runs. And the idea that the Heat had that place quiet, that you could hear a church bell sneaking around the Raptors is like my heart was glad because I know how tight those fans are sitting there gritting their teeth, not being able to just explode because their team has no consistent run in them, and this other team is just there and now is taking a lead and just won't go away.
And believe
was the part for me that watching a quiet Garden, I know the agony they went through, man.
I hope to God on all things South Beach. If I'm praying on sunscreen and bathing suits, dog, please let them take this series and drag it out and scare these dudes. But
I didn't even think that far.
But
my goodness.
But other takeaways though. Anthony Edwards is a problem. Anthony Edwards is a straight up problem. And by the way, I always knew he was a problem, but he is a problem.
That's my guy.
And I love the fact that not only is he going blow for blow with everybody in the desert, like he's playing. I don't care if it's Book, Durant, or he's playing Coyotes, dog. He don't care who's out there. Like, yo, check ball, right? He's talking trash to the dude who is probably one of the greatest scorers in NBA history ever. And he's
talking trash to a dude who puts fear in everybody when he steps in the court.
He is not afraid, bro. He is not.
He put fear in a guy that when the Greek Freak beat them in the playoffs, said he's the best player ever played.
Yes.
I know we won the game, but that guy's he's the best. He's better than me. Say that right now.
Man, well, look. So I love seeing that. I absolutely love seeing that. The rest of the playoffs, I mean, it's always gonna be fascinating because I think the Lakers and Denver, despite it being 2-0, has been fairly even. So we'll see how that plays out going forward. I don't have any thoughts that they'll win the series, but I'll be curious to see how it concludes. Shout out to Anthony Davis, who's actually playing. He is the prince that was promised. I mean, the Bulls playing like for real. Like he's angry. He's going out there and he's putting in work. So I can't say not a bad word about him. But for me, everything is Sam. When the Sixers lose, I don't even want to see like the color orange on the basketball.
That's exactly where. That's the time I'm on, man. None of it matters anymore. And,
like, I'm done. I don't watch ESPN.
All right, so see, you keep teasing it, bro. Let me get through my sort of weekend recap, and then we'll get to the main topic here. So, in terms of the opening play-in as well, good job for the Sixers of getting the Heat.
Move on right back to that. Move on right. Just get to what we don't. Good job is 2 weeks.
More advertising. We're in the main course here.
Yeah, miss me.
So, in terms of the opening weekend, I will say that had the same reaction to Boston losing that second game. It's still also gotten my crawl a bit because it's like they shouldn't be the only series tied 1-1.
Right.
Had no interest actually in the Cavs series versus Orlando. Actually, I don't even know if they played their second game. Have they even?
No, you know what's bad about that? Let me tell you. When you put the series at the same time as the game on ESPN and you put yours on NBA TV, you tell me you don't care about it, right? You tell me you don't care about it. Like Orlando's not watching that series. Yeah, I mean, Donovan Mitchell's mom ain't going to no games. Like, she's not watching that series.
It's the game again.
You know what I mean? Like, she ain't going. She's like, baby, I ain't gonna make it. Like, hey, babe, I ain't going. Like, she ain't going. Like, y'all put it on NBA TV. You don't care about it.
And to think that the Cavs like lost on purpose just for that matchup. The matchup that nobody wants to watch.
Yeah, nobody's watching that. Ain't nobody watching that. Please.
Like, those dudes are one opponent that was the worst ratings.
Yeah,
we want them.
Dog, they really playing that game on AM radio, dog. Like that's where they at with this, man. Like ain't nobody checking for this. They really are. They really are, man. I'm telling you, man. Shoot, that game was played at a high school gym in Cleveland somewhere. It's real.
Clippers and Mavs tied. Obviously the Mavs came out with a clunker in game one where they scored no points in the first half of game one. And so, that's sort of the reason they lost. Figured it out in game two.
Yeah.
You're trying to get done without Kawhi. I don't know if I have a lot of faith in the Clippers without Kawhi. OKC, that's my young and sleeping team. Those are my young bulls, I like to say. I'm glad that they have a nice 2-0 lead, and I like the way they play. And what I appreciate about them, and this is going to help us transition into our main topic, is the fact that they go about 10 deep in their rotation while they're in the playoffs. Interesting.
How do you really feel?
So you're actually allowed by NBA law to play all the players that are on your NBA roster.
I'm guessing you feel some kind of way that we've not seen 10 guys enter into the system.
I've seen it. So, without any further ado, let's do it. Sixers down 0-2. The NBA admits officiating errors. What does this mean, man? What's going on here? Sixers down 0-2. NBA admits that they got it wrong. Oh, I forgot. We've also filed a grievance for officiating the first two games. They admit to errors in game two and crucial errors that decided the outcome of the game. Literally decided the outcome of the game. And now you're in a situation where a team is down 0-2. You have your best players playing on one leg. Sometimes, and what do you do as an organization? What's the message?
This is gonna sound terrible, but to your first point was about the officiating. Did we really need a report to see that Maxey got a third-degree whipping in the corner? Like, do we really needed a report to see that Brunson and Hart straight up pickpocketed that dude in the corner? Did we really need that?
He got mugged.
Yeah, like, do we really need to see an official NBA document? Calls were missed on both ends, but in the crux of the game, in a situation in which you knew there was likely to be a foul. And if he was trapped in every other game, you see a timeout call, right? Supposedly neither happens. The timeout's not called, nor is there a foul. Come on, dog. Like, there's no part of me that sees that and believes that there was no mistake made. Irrespective of that, however, the Sixers should have never been in that spot. They should have never been in that spot. They absolutely that looked like a Doc Rivers last 30 seconds to me, yo. And I hate to say that because I think Nick Nurse has done a really good job this season.
You know why I blame Nick Nurse? I blame Nick Nurse for two reasons, and this is it's a weird blame. It's a weird blame of Nick Nurse. I really can't blame Nick Nurse. Kyle Lowry really kind of like triggered the chaos in a sense. It really centered around the decision to quickly try to inbound the ball. Yeah. And if you're down, I get it. And your team is ready for it because you're trying to quickly advance. But if the strategy is to try to, even when inbounding, play keep away, right? Even when inbounding, play keep away, because now you're just trying to wind out the clock, then it's all about strategy.
Yeah.
It's all about understanding, okay, what are we going to do next? And the idea that he operated at a different speed than everyone else put us in a mental pretzel. And we saw it in real time. So Maxey is first coming this way on the baseline when Kyle has the ball. And so then he has to reverse back, right? Now, Jalen grabbing his jersey right in front of the official and it not being called is just ridiculous, right? Like you can't. I saw one meme say this is how the Eagles lost the Super Bowl, right? It was the same tug and it got called in football. Think about it. It's a penalty in football, and yet for some reason that was permissible in that circumstance. So it throws him off in terms of even the timing of a pass that's in the air. So when he catches it, he has like a bobble of the ball because his body is not where it's supposed to be,
right,
in terms of the trajectory, right? The physics is all off now. So he gets pulled back. So he bobbles. And on the bobble, it was like raw meat, right? And so
it looked like Clubber Lang. Like
they attacked the bobble. Yeah. Problem, officials, is that there's still a person there, right? There's still an actual soul that exists who's been probably baptized, who is standing right there. Why can't he get the same protections afforded everyone on that hardwood in that moment? He then secures possession of the rock. He gets slammed into by Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, hits the ground. Now, Tyrese, what are we doing? What are we doing? There is no play to make. There is no pass to make, bro. How are we not immediately calling a timeout once you lose your footing? There were a lot of things that happened the way that game ended, officiating aside, that showed. I see why you say Doc Rivers, because we just collapsed. It crumbled. There was no fortitude anywhere. I don't think anyone would have done the right thing in that moment because it all looked chaotic, right?
Yeah, but you've said in your statement, you talked about soul, collapse, crumble, right? Generally speaking, those aren't words associated with cats who are winning the game. Like soul, like you have no soul, you collapsed and you crumbled. Doug, you do know we were winning the game. But you said it to me the other day when we talked immediately after the game, and it hit me in a way that just was like, yo, these dudes are doctors, cotton soft. Josh Hart has 29 rebounds between two.
There it is, brother. There it is.
That is all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. That's
all you need to know.
That is will. That is will. One team is playing with skill. The other team is playing with will.
Well, no. I don't know if it's will. They're playing. No. They're playing aggressively. They have a certain. These guys because Buddy Hield and Tobias Harris. I'm sure maybe they're not trying as hard. Uber is trying, I would think, right? These dudes aren't even assertive. They aren't going for it in a way that is at all meaningful.
Let's look at the definition.
Well, listen, regardless, we're talking about 29 rebounds in 2 games, dog.
Brother, from a guy who's 6'4", 6'5".
Come on.
The true meaning of will, the desire, inclination, or choice of a person or group. The desire. One team was playing with a desire. The other team was playing with an inclination. No, I'm kidding. No,
Well, I don't know if they've even been inclined.
Listen, so let's get into it because there's so much to break down in terms of even the will component.
Yeah.
I started off by saying kudos to OKC. They played 10 deep, right?
Yeah.
We're in an issue. We're in a series with a team that is playing with a lot of will. Our skill players attributed or offered us almost 80 points a game in both games, right? 230+ guys for all intents and purposes. So our studs are going to be our studs. It's the pieces around that we have to tinker with, dependent on what the matchup is. We have will guys on our team.
We have will guys on our team.
We need to play the will guys against the Knicks.
So who are you calling for?
I am first calling for Ricky Council.
Yeah.
I'm calling for Ricky Council, and because he is a player that you can play as a forward, small, or on the perimeter as a wing.
And he's not scared. He's not scared.
Josh Hart matchup.
Yeah.
You can have him bump heads with that guy all game long. Yes, is Josh a better player? Yes. Are you going to get maybe poor fouls? I don't care. You need Josh's reckless energy. He's a wrecking ball on the court, and he is just banging into everybody. And every time he makes contact, it absorbs our energy. He played 48 minutes, Malik. He played 48 minutes in that game. And he still was the strongest in terms of effort at the end. In game one, he secures an offensive rebound to truly close it out. And then he had some choice words. And it's like another full game out of Josh Hart.
Yeah.
So you need someone else to deal with that because that's something special and it's different. And that's why he's an NBA player. That's his NBA skill. And it's on. And we have a guy on the bench who could at least help us deal with that. Because in terms of the other skill components, we have it in spades. And I think what we saw out of Ricky Council Jr., I'm sorry, not senior, even though he's one of the four, there's four of them.
I actually am a fourth. He and I share that.
It was like lineage four. It's not four this way, it's four this way. They're all in the same generation.
So they're same generation. Yeah.
All his brothers are Ricky Council.
He's like George Foreman, like 12 Georges.
Correct.
George, Georgia, Georgina,
Correct.
Georgia.
What I saw out of him in the game against, again, San Antonio Spurs, yes, no Joel Embiid, but for us, it was a game we had to win while we're still trying to get out of the play-in. Coach put him in the fourth quarter because he needed a difference maker in a tight game when we were down, and he made heady, correct plays. Not only was he a dog on the offensive glass and going to the rim, but that wraparound pass he made to Batum in the corner, he knew where Batum was going to be. It wasn't a reckless drive. He did it with intent of pulling in the defense and making a pass that Joel Embiid said only you and LeBron and Luka can make that pass. Like, right? It even got the flowers from the big fella, which means the big fella believes in you. So, coach, put him in the game. This is the tailor-made for, and I think it's a home game. So if you didn't trust it on the road, here's where you turn the tide. I also think there's an opportunity that Melton gets minutes tonight.
Yeah.
That could help. We cannot play with a short rotation against this team, in my opinion. We have too many players, and whoever gets it going, you run him out there.
I'd like to, if Melton were healthy, and we'll see what he has tonight, I think it would matter. I think Melton's tailor-made for this player. You're looking for another guy who is a competent guard, who can dribble a little bit, maybe play make some, but can definitely hit a shot. And so he negates a guy like a McBride. He limits a DiVincenzo. He's going to be able to contest the Hart. So you got some flexibility there. I think he's an upgrade over someone like Cam Payne, who is not as stout defensively. And you have to worry about that when you're talking about pairing with Maxey. Right. But the other thing, Sam, is I feel like we're going a little bit like late 2017, 2018, where we were trying to cater to Ben Simmons a little bit. And we are trying to cater to an injured, I'm qualifying it, Joel Embiid, where you have to decide that I know Joel Embiid gets you 30. The ball needs to be always in every single shot, every single decision made. It has to go through Maxey. That's it. And Embiid is going to be your 7'2", 280-pound decoy, former MVP decoy right now.
And it's still, and with him as a decoy, you're still better than the Knicks.
You should be. You absolutely should be, but we've not.
And the fact, and here's the worst part about that loss in game 2 is because you don't even have a lot of freedom to try certain things, right? Like, I thought we were going to see more of the Joel Embiid, B-ball Paul minutes. And we didn't see it. And we saw Joel Embiid, to your point, in terms of like catering to your superstar, even to your detriment. There's no reason Joel Embiid plays the whole fourth quarter in game 2.
But there's also no reason. Listen, I am not someone who's some stodgy old head who's like, get off my lawn, dog. He's been hitting the mid range all season long. But Joel Embiid is dragging one leg, and he is trying to take someone off the dribble, starting at the 3-point line. Right?
Weird.
If you're not up and down the floor, which the Sixers are not going to be anybody in a fast break unless it is Maxey, then
Correct.
Allow for you to dump in and him either draw fouls. He's been so inefficient, and it's not a criticism because I know how hurt he is. But you've got to give him a chance to get to the line and be successful. Shooting like 11 for 26 or whatever it's been is not a good Embiid night. It's not. Because you being out there beyond the 3-point line does not get your team in the bonus. It does not draw fouls on them. It does not change rotations at all, right? You being down, they're still going to double. Now you kick to your shooters.
You're not a threat.
You're not. They want you out there.
And again, what makes it so horrendous, I say horrendous, because we still almost won the game. So it's one of those things where it's like, am I convinced that the coach feels he has to do something different? Because in his mind, we got robbed. My method of managing this game should have resulted in a victory. And so, the NBA has admitted that they botched the ending, and so now we came out with less points than the other team.
You just said the perfect phrase to my question. Are you convinced that we're going to do something different? After the game, Joel Embiid, reminiscent of Toronto, sat there, was despondent. He was, in tears, near tears, whatever, but he was clearly upset at the outcome of the game. I believe I sent you a clip of it where he was talking about, we are going to win this series. It was no effing way this should have happened, yada, 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 yada. I've never heard Embiid speak like that before. I've never heard him speak that defensively, where he essentially guaranteed a series. We know what we had to do. We know what we had to fix. We're going to win this series. I've never heard him say that. I am hopeful that despite the fact that he's on one leg, he's like, I've got enough to get this done. I am going to lead us. Because right now, I'm not seeing it at all. I'm not.
That's what I'm saying.
Do you believe my question then, Sam? Do you believe when he says we're going to win this, are you seeing a different Embiid? Are you going to see one that's going to go out and destroy heart?
I will answer that question because I can't answer it solely off of that comment because I have to include the comments from the coach. So Nick Nurse said, he said something to the effects of, we made this series a little longer, right? Which also implies we're getting out of this. We just have to play more games to do it. And so when I think about hearing both of those statements after that kind of loss, there is a sense of maybe there's an idea of what truly is correctable to make the difference.
Mm-hmm.
I can't help but also acknowledge Jalen Brunson has been one of the worst players in this series. And that, to me, is not going to hold true through a 7-game series.
He's going to get buckets eventually.
Right. So it's like if Jalen becomes a little bit more unlocked as a player, then the question is, what are we going to see different from the others that gets us over the hump? And to me, one of the differences, we see different others.
Yeah.
So seeing different others may offer us the difference from the others in order for us to win. Maybe those are the things that Joel Embiid is and Nick Nurse sort of have acknowledged. The Tobias Harris minutes, again, I'm not seeing the kind of activity and productivity that warrants it. And I thought we went through a stretch in the regular season where it seemed this coaching staff seemed at least emboldened enough to play who they needed to play when we needed to play them in order to win the game. And we saw a lot of closeout games coming down the stretch where Tobias, who had been playing in the game, was not on the floor to win the game. So seeing him on the floor and playing 41 minutes in game 2 was surprising because he only offered us 10 points. The 9 rebounds, great, but in 41 minutes.
Not compared to Josh Hart, who's out there looking like Charles Barkley. Come on.
So I'm saying there's opportunity. There's a lot of meat on the bones in terms of how we can adjust to what's happening to us. And if this coach is not willing to pull the trigger in terms of using more of the tools in his toolbox, then I'm done with them. I'm serious.
Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it real simple.
Okay.
Prediction for tonight then.
I think we win because we play more than 8 guys.
So your 8 are Embiid.
So I say we go starting 5, and then we'll have Batum, Buddy Hield, Paul Reed, Ricky Council.
Well, you're gonna have Melton somewhere. I expect him to play.
And Melton. It's either gonna be Melton or Campaign.
So we got Maxey, Lowry, Batum, Harris, or Oubre Harris, depending on, I guess, Oubre Harris, and then Embiid. And then you got Paul Reed, Batum off the bench, Campaign, Melton, and Hield.
I think you're going to see. I think you should also, in my opinion, you should look at the minutes with Embiid and Paul Reed. If Embiid is floating around a 3-point line, if Embiid recording 0 rebounds in the whole second half in 24 minutes of play, then obviously he's laboring. You still need to battle this defensive-minded.
Repeat that again. What you just said about Embiid in the second half and 0 rebounds.
He has 0 rebounds in 24 minutes of play.
Yeah.
So, and again, he floated outside on the 3-point line for most of the second half. That's evidence of an injury. You still need to rebound the basketball. And if you're telling me that you're the only reason Tobias is in there is to rebound, give me Paul Reed. Give me Ricky Council.
You know what? Honestly, Sam, this is actually why I started with the Eagles. When you asked me where do I start, because the conversation can get a little bit long with the Sixers, whatever it is, but I just don't have, like, they should win, but I don't know that I have belief, because let's say they get by this. Is Embiid's leg going to get better? No. Right? Is Embiid's leg going to get better?
Leg's not even lasting through the game anymore.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
and I know what that pain feels like. I've had meniscus surgeries. I know what it feels like when you have that sensation that makes you not run hard. Like because I know what it feels like to say, ooh, it's sharp. It's very sharp. And it tells you, keep trying that. Keep on keeping on, see what happens.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't expect improvements throughout.
So then what are we talking about? I mean, at this point,
you beat the Knicks. And that's all. At this point, that's a successful season to me.
Beat the Knicks.
Beat the Knicks. Beat those Knicks. Beat the Knicks. Beat the Knicks.
And then we get relegated to the NBA TV series against.
And then we shut it down. And here's another conversation. Embiid in the Olympics. I know I'm tabling a little bit, but
God, no.
There is no Olympics, correct? In your opinion?
Yo, listen, I love this country as much as any person has a right to. Absolutely not, dog. If he's anywhere near France, French fries, Paris, baguettes, croissants, dog, they need to throw their entire body in. Are you serious?
Isn't the Olympics in France?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's in France in like 2 months.
He's first of all, do you know the whole controversy with him in France?
I know that he had eligibility to participate for several nations. I know that he holds multiple passports. I know that he was actively recruited. I also know that the boy is one step from a handicap park sticker, and he probably couldn't walk a 5K right now. So you're going to tell me that you're going to limp through this series and then go ahead and play in games that are typically more physical or as physical? Come on, man. I'm good. I'm all the way good. All the way good. And by the way, let me go even further. I feel the same way about, not necessarily that I'm invested in this way. Kawhi Leonard is taking up that same team spot. He's on that same team, right? If you're the Clippers owner and you're looking at like, yo, I got a brand new contract with you. I got a brand new building opening with you. And you aren't even playing in this series regularly. I don't even know that he has yet.
He hasn't played yet.
Okay, so he hasn't played yet. I know that they were hoping to get him on the floor.
They lost the home game because he hasn't played.
Okay, so now you want to go play in Paris? Come on, man. I'll get you a ticket later on, but you ain't got to visit that country right now. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So Embiid is a pariah in Paris right now, or like he will be, because in him getting his citizenship, he sort of vowed to represent them in the upcoming Olympics.
Mm.
And so the fact that it's actually being held in Paris or in France, it's like, woof, because there's like a lot saying that he should be banned. Like, you have French, infamous French basketball players once willing to be banned from entering the country for the Olympics. Like, that's how, and so I wouldn't even want to be an athlete in a country where I'm not welcome. I'm just saying. I don't want to visit a country where the country does not want me there. It's just, and I'm that recognizable.
Sam, you do remember, like, there were torches and January 6th parties when cats started kneeling in this country. So, like, I know that wasn't what you were saying, But what you are saying is that you don't want to be an athlete in a country that does not want you.
I don't want to be.
We've had the same sentiment here, different conversation, but the same sentiment does exist in other places.
That doesn't want me to be here. They just want us to play ball. You know what I'm
next
saying?
Time, go ahead and kneel at one of your. Go ahead, yo, listen. Next time, you go ahead and kneel at like your son's CYO basketball game.
I told my kids I had 5 knee surgeries. My son tried to turn my knee into a punching bag the other day. I said, "Sir, before I have a reaction, you know that is regrettable. Please let me tell you, don't even consider doing that again. The pain that I'm trying to manage, even in this moment, is just obnoxious."
Is that a kid friendly way of saying before I beat you?
Listen.
Can you say that on the internet? I don't know. Can you say that?
So back to our 76.
Is this a pro spanking podcast? I don't know what this is.
It is a pro child rearing podcast.
Does that involve spanking?
It involves training up a child the way they should go. So they will not.
Well, there are quote scripture, spare the rod, spoil the seed. So I mean, here we go.
we ride and we rise up to here, man. they know the straightaways. You know what I'm saying?
My parents' version, my father's version of the Bible had the rod. It had a hand on Lincoln. I got beat on Lincoln Drop. Shout out to my dad.
The rod and the staff shall comfort me, but it ain't comfort me coming up.
We had the old King James, not the new King James. They had leather belts. We had leather products. So, nah, it wasn't. My kids don't know how good they are. How good they got it now.
Yeah, you don't give me the belt, not the belt I wear. The belt tailor made for you. It even looks different.
You know how spiteful you gotta be. Let's talk about you know how spiteful. You know how spiteful you gotta be to have a specific belt. Like you gotta go to the store, and be like, I'm not gonna wear this one.
Like, this belt can't even fit through loops. It's too wide. It's too wide.
You got a 5-inch wide belt with 72 holes on it. You know you wasn't gonna ever put on. That you bought that belt just for this purpose? Come on. You know you ain't that big. Why you gonna buy this belt?
He went on when he said his fourth son was born. He bought Pampers and his belt. But
oh my gosh,
my goodness,
you are such an aggressive parent.
That's funny. But listen, man, here's what I think about our 76ers. I think tonight is going to be the night of all nights. We find out who we truly are, and either we continue to drink the Kool-Aid or we're out on them altogether. Like there's no loss where you feel like, I'm still with it. Like to me, this you need to show me who you are. And the only way I will accept a loss is if something occurs with the big fella that is so outside of the scope of, it's like if he's not able to perform in any real way, then it's like, okay, I can concede then that's that for this team. Other than that, I want to see the creativeness of why you brought in this Nick Nurse. You got rid of a doc for a nurse. So let's make sure that we're going in the right way here, okay? And you brought someone who has a little bit more understanding of the patient and can offer hopefully has identified the issues that have been plaguing us, and has corrected them, and we're now and has patched us up together so that we can now perform and beat a team like the Knicks. This is a formidable team. Yeah. But to me, with a laboring Embiid, that will be a successful season. Even if the next opponent is light cakes, I think if he were to spend all of his energy to get through the Knicks, boom, Joel, I got you, bro. Sixers, all right, this is a team with the healthy number 21. I can believe in that. But if they physically don't show the will to beat this team, then with same old, man. Well, it's like now we have another team in the league for us.
You will see very early, I think, if the Sixers don't come out and they are playing up and down, they're trying to play with pace. If they're not trying to go out and contest, if they're not trying to run, you will see very quickly that this game is going to be mucked and mired up, and it's going to be the exact same ones that we've seen for the first two. So I expect the Sixers to win tonight. I also expect them to disappoint me in some form or fashion towards the end of the season, but we'll save that for a later day.
Understood. So yeah, I do It's funny because sometimes, in my lifetime, I've laid a wager or two, but am I at a point where I would be willing to do that? Even I don't even know what the line of the game is tonight.
Oh, you know what? I think I may have it. Let's tell you in a second.
It's really easy to know.
Not that I bet, but I do keep a slight interest in these matters.
All right, 7:30, 76.
Sixers are favored by 5.5 tonight.
What?
Yeah,
Sixers minus 5.5?
giving 5.5.
A lot. That's enough. That's enough. That means that the Sixers really should show the Knicks who they're dealing with
Yeah.
from start to finish for a full 48. We had 2 winnable games in New York City. Here's another thing that's going to feel weird. This is going to be there are going to be a lot of Knicks fans in the crowd tonight.
Man, look, you know what? Just then run those dudes right out the building. Seriously. That's just what it is.
A lot of Knicks fans in the building.
Like I don't, you know what the irony in all of this is? Like, we can talk about how much people get on Philadelphia, how much Philadelphia's fan perception of Philadelphia in the media is, how negative it is. I'm pretty sure I heard a 4-letter expletive the entire game about F Joel Embiid or F Joel or some F Embiid or something like that. I don't remember any kind of like criticism, comment from the announcers at all. They just was going about their broadcast as though we couldn't hear it. Now, do you imagine if they were in Philadelphia and they were to say that, oh, well, he's getting a Philadelphia welcome, something corny would be said, right? Yo, listen, if that's what they expect from no one likes us, we don't care. Let's just go ahead and play ball now.
And listen, trust me, it's an uphill battle because I think, unfortunately, since we have a little bit of insight in terms of the bylaws of the NBA, they could be incentivized to have the Knicks win. It's like it's one of their marquee franchises again, and so there's going to be a heavy lift for the Sixers to get it done. And I think maybe that's even why the officials are like, hey, man, what gives? What do you mean we got it wrong? What are you talking about? We got the memo. What do you mean we didn't call the right calls? What's this? What's this?
Yo, so like you say that, and we talked about Boban missing a free throw on purpose. We got Jonte Porter we talked about, who is now suspended. I think, was he suspended for life from the NBA? Right?
I don't know if he can attend a game in person.
I don't know. I don't think he can. I don't think he can drive down past the stadium at this point. And now, when you see how egregious some of these calls were, right? And then you got live betting. All of these things kind of play into
out the game. You can lay wagers. Not even like before. It's like, oh, tip off, bets are in. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
You can still lay the line. So if you can still lay the line, I am inclined to believe that there are others who still understand that here are the active situations and circumstances. Because there's still a lot of money on the line at all times.
Yes.
And so you're looking at a situation where the refs swallowed the whistle.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't want to sit here and speculate that there's something nefarious going on, but you can't out and out dismiss it. When Boban clanks a 3, that I don't know what the line in that game was, but he missed it intentionally. And he did it in a way that had he not called into attention, I think there was some kind of fan promotion similar like the bricking for chicken thing that we do here. Had he not called into attention,
it was a free throw.
Right, it was a free throw, but there was like, if you missed both free throws, the fans got something. And he kind of signaled that he got it, that he understood, and he missed it intentionally. He missed it in a way that if he doesn't signal anything, nobody's going to think anything of it.
Right. Because he signaled before he did it, and then after he did, he put his finger up. So it's like, yeah, that was for me. That was from me, guys. It's like,
yes. Yeah. So I mean, Sam, like, these are real questions that need to be asked.
They are.
That's all I'm saying.
They are.
They start tonight. Let's see what happens.
So, speaking of real questions that need to be asked, I don't know if there's a realer question in this, man. As I somehow didn't prepare this one.
Oh, good.
I don't think it gets realer than this, man. What are you processing?
Well, nothing that I guess is not to be expected. It's not as normally heavy. We are less than a month from my oldest son moving on to his next phase. He's going to be a middle schooler. And it's a strange transition. It's a strange transition where, and part of me is the concern and worry that I have as a father, where I still see him as as my child. He is tall. He does not always smell like a child anymore. He speaks in a way and that we've taught him to look people in the face, advocate for himself, and he's not always necessarily perceived as a child. And we are more or less like 30 days from the idea of him being in a new school, and we're going to graduate and have the little 5th grade ceremony, whatever it is. And it just hit me that we're now kind of at the point where, like, ready or not, the world is here, right? Ready or not, you're going into the world. And you see so many stories, and we talked about like the shootings that are going on in the city and some of the stories that are going on in education and how the impact of those things affect you, your family, but more so your children, because obviously we're a little bit more equipped to deal with it now as adults. And how it hits, and it's just not something I was prepared or ready for at all. I'm not ready for the idea that I am no longer going to be able to control an environment or how he is perceived, right? Because he's going to lose. It's a strange thing. 11-year-old boys, let's put it real frank, you're not considered a child anymore from some people. An 11-year-old boy all of a sudden becomes like an adult man, right? And you are expected in some way to behave, to speak, to function, to think, comport yourself in a way that is commensurate with that expectation. And my son wakes up in the morning, he's watching Godzilla and King Kong or Teen Titan Go. Like, he is not that child yet. So it hit me, not to belabor the point, and everyone goes through this. We all go through it, and thankfully we've gone through it successfully, I guess, that my young man is a real young man.
Yeah.
That's it. And we are a month from him walking across whatever stage and getting his little 5th grade diploma and moving on to, whatever the next phase of life is going to be for him. So.
No, that's deep, man. That's it is a little sobering realizing that your boy is, not your little boy anymore. Even my 4-year-old throws me off, one, because of his sheer size. And that's the thing where every now and again I have to keep reminding myself of his age so that I can still see him that way, right? So that I don't do exactly what you're talking about, where I'm looking at a person and just thinking, oh, you're older, and then treating him like he's like his sister because his sister's 6. He's not 6. He's just tall, but he's 4, and he was 3 3 weeks ago, right? So he's a fresh 4, and so I am also cognizant and guilty of it at the same time. And so I absolutely have a lot of concerns for him as he matures and ages, because I understand the predicament he'll be in. And even when we're out currently, there are times when I have to let people know his age so that you don't have a different expectation of him.
That you adjust, so that you adjust, yeah.
Great, adjust. You're dealing with a 4-year-old, not a 6-year-old, and so please. But what am I processing? What I'm processing is working through on a lot of committees, serving time, doing a lot of different things. And what I am processing is something that I've always known, but every now and again, it kind of just hits you in the face. And regardless of intentions, regardless of effort, energy, regardless of aligned interests, there is no reality where you are able to please everybody. Just doesn't exist. And I have to sometimes remind myself of that fact and accept it, but accept it with a joyful spirit of realizing that that's not something for me to try to achieve. I'm not going to be able to please everyone. Someone is not going to be happy with something. And so even in terms of what I'm actively engaged in working on and through, I am processing that reality, because if I don't, then when confronted with it, I could actually have a real emotional response to it.
Yeah.
As opposed to realizing this is just par for the course. And I completely understand. And even just being able to, from a customer service perspective, deal with it in a way that eliminates any emotional involvement or element. I want to guard my own heart here in realizing that someone is not going to be pleased. but that's okay. And we've put in a good effort to ensure that we try to accommodate all interests. But when you recognize that it's like with this Venn diagram,
Mhm.
we can only hit the middle. Like that's our goal, is to hit the piece of the pie that connects all of us. And so yes, there are going to be outliers. And in my capacity, I guess I'm going to be forced to handle or manage or deal with those outliers. But even in doing that, I can still guard my personal emotions, because the world has already, it's part of the laws, right? Like you're not going to be able to please
Yeah.
everyone. And so that's what I'm processing in terms of my own preparation.
I think that's a really hard place to occupy, a profound place to reach. One of the things, I don't know if I heard or read it, it was Malcolm Gladwell that I remember talking about it most
My
recently.
God, man.
And
My God.
yeah, so Malcolm Gladwell was talking about, this is some time ago, where he talked about the art. I don't know if he was summarizing a view of someone else's book or his own work. I can't recall, but he was talking about being skilled in agreements,
Hmm.
and so being willing to be just disagreeable, to say no, to not necessarily be in conflict, but to state your position. So to contextualize, to repurpose and recontextualize the way in which we were to position ourselves. So I'm not in conflict with you. I just necessarily prefer this view. I am not going to disagree with you, Sam, for the sake of disagreement, but my preference is, and I need to protect and advocate for my preference here, right? And so we can disagree. That's the outcome. But I want you to understand that I'm disagreeing from a space of, kind of self-righteous, not self-righteousness, self-care, right? And awareness that I need to be comfortable in this space the same way you are asking me to join you in something that I may not want to do. And it is a hard thing, whether it be with a spouse. I don't want to do this right now. I don't want to go to Target. I've been out all day long. This is the fifth store you wanted to go to. Dog, they got the internet. Order that stuff at home, right? Or mom and dad, I haven't talked to you about X, Y, and Z in so long. You haven't been forthcoming with these certain issues. I need you to do better. I understand this is what works for you, but we are in a relationship and this is what works for me. I need you to consider those types of things. Or even at your job where it might be a financial detriment. Listen, I'm in a situation right now at work where I don't necessarily agree with the way that things were presented to me in some instances. So I've had to more recently actually articulate my concerns. And a lot of them were done because of the unwillingness to have an uncomfortable conversation and share your view on certain things. And so we were disagreeing, but the disagreement actually resulted in punitive behavior, where if we had a conversation about why we were disagreeing, we may not have actually reached that point. Like, how can you be productive in your disagreement? How can you be productive through that, realizing, like, Sam, you can sleep better at night by knowing you're comfortable with somebody not necessarily liking you in the moment.
Listen, and I'm owning it, right? Because what happened with me recently is I took a certain position, and it was so strong that I decided, you know what, maybe this isn't for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the way I preface that is going off of another item that we talked about previously in terms of what am I processing. The journey is the destination.
Yeah.
And so it was sort of a moment for me when I realized that my interest is not to be contentious, but obviously, we are at a bit of an impasse, and I'm unwilling to just simply concede for the sake of conceding, because the perspective that I had, I think, is valid enough and sound enough that I'm unwilling to just release it. Like I haven't been swayed personally, right? And so, um, no, that's not true. That's not true. That wasn't the issue. The issue, okay, this is perfect, because that wasn't the issue. That wasn't the issue at all. The issue was I felt that our conduct in managing disagreements was not above board.
Mm.
And that is what I had a fundamental issue with. It's like, to your point, being able to disagree. Like,
Yeah.
let's be in a space where we can have different ideas, different interests, disagree, but it not become a personal anything, right? It's just, okay, here's my issues with this idea, here's my issues with this idea, here's my issues with this idea. And then ultimately we'll vote to determine what is going to happen next, right? As opposed to, here's my concern with this idea, and I think it's being presented because of this. Like, and now there's innuances of, or you're insinuating character associations,
flaws, or negative perception.
Yeah, right. So now the characters in play, and it's like, for me, I personally was like, I don't have a lot of space for this. I don't have space in participating in something that's operating like this. So if this is how we manage disagreements, then I'm not going to be part of it. If we can manage disagreements that don't include characterizations, then like I'm all good, because I'm listen, part of, and it's funny you mentioned Malcolm Gladwell. In my Hall of Fame speech, I referenced Malcolm Gladwell and how we framed even the creation of Sam's community. He has a quote that says, "I took out a clean sheet of paper and reimagined the world." And that's what this was for us, taking out a clean sheet of paper, because we had a Sam's community that we created in 2016 that we managed through our church. But Sam's 2 community was something different. We took out a clean sheet of paper and just reimagined what this program or organization could be. And that's what we decided, you know what, we're not going to run a church program. We're going to create our own organization, file LLC, and create Sam's community. And we didn't want to say the name, so we put the 2 in there, right? So that was us reimagining the world, right? Like us taking our own agency and ownership of what we can do and create. And through that, our engagement is what we desire, right? Will we engage with certain entities that we would like to? And there are other partnerships that we say, you know what? There's not enough of a fit or a match for this to work, right? There's
what's funny?
Both, but I'm willing to say, you know what? There's something fundamental we disagree with, so it's okay, but we'll go another way.
Engagement. You said the word engagement. Will we create associations? I think about in this space. I mean, we talk about how we're sports fans, fathers, believers, husbands. I not to go and I don't know too much inside baseball here, but like I think about how it applies to like marriages, for example, right? Close friendships. You know, I'm at the point now, and just as you are, like I've known you, Sam, for 20 years at this point, longer than 20 years. At this point.
We're planning our 25th high school reunion.
Right, exactly. So like the notion that, you know, I've got friends, we've got friends that go back that long or longer. The fact that I've known my wife now for however many years, all of these conversations, I think about it in the context of, you know what, if sometimes I will admittedly take that L to keep the peace, right? I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to eat that. It's not worth the fight. You might have had a hard day. I might be stressed. I may be sensitive because of reacting to something else. And so I don't want to bring all of that into this encounter. But what invariably happens in terms of the engagement or the lack of engagement in that particular moment, the associations that I'm going to make, or kind of the way in which we create the relationship that we have, it is affected by being unwilling to either dislike a moment or be disagreeable. And I had a conversation this morning with a homie of mine who I haven't talked to in a while. I've had recent conversations with my wife where it's like every now and again, I'm not trying to fight tooth and nail. I really am not. Because first of all, I don't really like who I am when I sometimes fight. But I also know that there are times where like I need you to know in very plain terms, this is a line for me. And if there's something that I am doing that ever offends you, Sam offends you, offends a family member, offends a friend, because of the relationships, because of the way we engage, because of the way the space that we create, because of the agency that I have of myself, I would hope that you would say, Malik, yo, listen, that was a line for me.
Right.
And because of the pre-existing history we have, because of the relationship that we hope to continue, I would hope someone tells me that. Right. Because that enables whatever happens afterwards to be healthy.
Right.
Because too often in friendships, you might catch some feelings over something that was said, a perceived slight, a joke that went too far, and now all of a sudden you're not answering phone calls. You're not answering text messages. I'm not seeing you with the same energy and passion as we once had. You know, marriage, it may be, you know what? Well, now next time you say something rude or come out the side of your neck with something, I'm getting shot at for something that I had no idea you were upset about. Or I'm upset about something that you have no idea about. I think we have to be more comfortable in what you just talked about, being unliked in a moment, or being willing to be disagreeable, not for the sake of just argument, but for the sake of progress.
For the sake of progress, and so I'm and even in the moment of what I felt the need to do, I still find like I found refuge in it. To be honest with you, I found refuge in the fact that I as they say, I stood on business. But no, but it was not. I was uncomfortable, and I let it be known what my specific concerns were, and I was not willing to skirt around it for sensibility's sake, because what about my own?
Yeah.
And I feel like for whatever reason, this because I know it was a choice to say it. It's not like something forced the words out of my mouth. And so there could have been the same scenario where mum's the word and I'm just at another meeting, right? And I'm just eating it. And I'm just, but I did I'm in a different phase of the maturation of Sam Grantham. And in this iteration, I'm really trying to hone in on the ability that I have to say no, the ability that I have to say enough, and the ability that I have to say thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Regardless of expectation, like that part also matters, right? Because a lot of times, listen, you and I are persons who've achieved things, and so with that comes a heavy burden, right? And different expectations. And sometimes especially if you're a person who gets along with people, the more people you get along, a lot of times the more people will look for you to aid or assist or acknowledge whatever it is. Right now that your influence grows, but with that growth of your influence is a growth of responsibility.
Yep.
And there are going to be rubber road moments where it's like
you being you, and tell me if it's different, right? You being social, because obviously, you have your organization, you've been involved in the church, you've been in some senses a limited public figure, whatever it is. You being you, and in the same sense, I've had expectations where like, oh, if Malik shows up, we're going to have a good time. Or if Malik is part of this group, he can blend in X, Y, and Z. You being you gives license to other people to behave in a certain way. License, let me not use license, permission to behave in a certain way. So like if one of your homies is joking about something, right? Because you know what, they feel comfortable around you and they know you will, co-sign, endorse, or laugh at the joke. What if the joke was out of pocket? What if the behavior was out of pocket, right? Like that's a responsibility that you also have to check or to promote, depending on what the conversation might be, certain behaviors or ideas, right? And it is sometimes exhausting.
It is. Like there are certain jokes that I could laugh at if I'm watching something with my wife, but if we're in public and it's just said, I'm very conscious of what those words are and the impact. I'm not gonna
right. Or Sam, or more so, right? There were, you weren't always married. There were comments that I'm sure that you've been around, not necessarily you, that were made around you that you might have been like, you know what, that was kind of funny. But now that you're a married man with a daughter, it probably has changed, right?
Yeah.
Probably has changed, right? There are certain things that we just can't abide by. We just can't abide. Like I'll give you an example. We talked earlier about in terms of it may not be likable. Like I said to you earlier, I'm not necessarily a fan of the N-word because I believe the N-word, how it slowly deteriorates mental conditions, how it affects perceptions, how it affects relationships, how it affects the way we have empathy towards other people.
Yeah.
Right? Call me whatever you want, except for that. But when I look at it, I'm thinking to myself, listen, it may not necessarily be a position that's favorable because of so much use, how prolific it's used in our communities.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if someone in my group says it, I'm like, yo, dog, miss me with that. Or why don't you chill on that? That's not a favorable position. But I don't want to give license to your behavior. So I'm going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to disagree. And I'm going to be like, you may not like me in the moment. And I'm cool with that because I don't like what's happening around me.
Listen, we have to be the light, bro. We have to be. And I think, and it's funny because even thinking about light, a lot of times when we think about light, we think agreeable. Right? It's like the connotation sometimes suggests that like embraces everything. But to be the light means that you repel darkness.
That's right.
So you can't fundamentally just be agreeable because light does not agree with dark.
That's right. It's interesting because, I mean, when you think about it, is that, the condition of darkness exists. When you go into a room, it is devoid. If it's no windows, if there's no doors, it's devoid of light. You change the condition and to allow for light. Right. So the same way that the sun exists, the same way that the lights in your home or whatever it is, there is a change in condition around you that affects the quality of your environment, whether it be light into darkness.
And so that to me is the disagreeing with, and that's why I think you got to be able to stand on business or on principle, because to me, listen, man, see, I'm about to go on another tangent. I was just watching this clip from The View, and there was a really strong conversation about the use of men from the panelists. And it was sad to just watch and hear and listen to how there was no thought of that. I mean, the word useless was used multiple times in describing men.
So describing useless men or men as useless?
Men as useless.
Oh, okay.
Right. And it was just like, this is The View. So it's like, why? But the reason I make that point is simply saying that the world itself will offer messages, and that's why you have to be willing to be the light. Because even in a daytime show, it's like, why are they actively saying men are useless? Like this one lady was saying that, her husband, if it wasn't for her female friends group, he wouldn't be able to feed himself. He'll be, emaciated. And then she said like he would be waddling in his own filth or something. And then you kind of like look up who her husband is, and he's like some lobbyist in DC worth millions. It's just like, why are we categorizing this person this way? And so I just think about like the world itself being dark. And that's why we have to be willing to be the light in the midst of it all, and so, and being the light means you disagree with the world. Like the world, to me, the messages from the world are not inherently right. And that's why it's important that we manage what goes into our children's eye and ear gates. You got to be responsible and parent, you got to parent them. The world is wolves out here.
Yeah, that's why I'm concerned about my fifth grade. Yeah.
So
that's why I'm concerned. But no, I think it's well said. I am actively aware of kind of my place, my perception. I'm sensitive to it because I've got two boys. And so what the world will tell them about themselves, if I don't tell them or show them more so, or associate with people around them who will look for them and be an example as well. Because it is constantly, subtly a way in which you are inundated with negative perceptions if you do not keep a light on at all times.
Gotta keep the light on. What's that? What was it? Motel 6 will keep the light on for you?
Keep the light on. I ain't trying to say no Motel 6, man. I got a job now. I'm trying to say something nice.
Maybe that's our thing. Processing. We'll keep the light on for you.
Yeah, Doug, I ain't trying to say no Motel 6. Listen, there was a time, but I got Marriott points. I ain't going to no Motel 6, Doug. I ain't going to no Motel 6. This is the last time I've been to a spot where you had to go like outside the building to go into your hotel room. Shout out to La Quinta. I've been on those.
La Quinta Inns and Suites. Well, look, man, this was rich. This was fulfilling. This was right on time. Exactly what the people needed before we get ready for our draft, before we get ready for Game 3 of Sixers versus Knicks. I'm sorry, Knicks v Sixers, because now we're hosting. Come to South Philly. Welcome to Broad Street. I hope the crowd is raucous. I know Knicks fans will be in the building. I hope they feel the same way the Celtics fans felt last night. Except I hope they feel worse because they're not even in the confines of their own arena. You gotta deal with a loss in hostile territory. But with Sixers got to get it done. I'll tell you this much: win or loss, a loss, I will not be devastated. That to me, I think, is the good thing I have going into tonight's game. I would not be devastated by a loss. It would just be an indication that this team isn't who I thought they were.
It's resignation.
It's resignation. Yeah. It's resignation. Not devastation, resignation. And if they win, it now puts the Knicks on notice, which I think they've been on notice the whole time. I think the Knicks know who they're up against. So,
well, I got a Sixers win. I think they win fairly comfortably. I'll be curious to see the rotation if there is any change. I'll absolutely be curious to see how Embiid's mobility is impacted with having rest and rehabilitation over the last 2 days. So I'm curious to see what he looks like. I absolutely, in some, do not believe the Eagles will sit at their current draft position. They will trade up. If they don't trade up, it will not be for want of trying. Absolutely not. And I don't think that we draft. I think we are probably looking at somewhere along the offensive or defensive front, offensive line or defensive front.
I think I agree with you. Offensive line, defensive front. I wouldn't be surprised if we use our draft capital to go get guys who are already proven.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, you just take our pick, we'll pay them.
Yeah.
Hey, guys over here, we give them bonuses. We give them the money up front. That's how we manage our budget. That's how we manage the cap. So I think that they are going to look to build their roster. We didn't really talk much about just leveraging those picks for trade assets, but I think that there is a real possibility that Howie steals the headlines again after tonight's draft, especially with what he did in free agency.
Listen, if they can find some way to get all the way up and get an edge, right? I think
trust them drafting an edge. It's got to be a surefire guy, man.
That's what I'm saying. They've got to get way up. They've got to get way up because I think that they're not going to trade up for a guard. They're not going to do that. They could trade up for a tackle, right? Who could play guard and then kick out later on. I don't see a corner. They've not done that and I have a track record. And so unless you believe that there is a guy, an impact guy in the front, that's the only likely move.
Yeah.
That's the only likely move. So I think I'd be shocked. He's not done it. They've not drafted a first-round corner ever. Not ever. Howie's not drafted a first-round corner, I should say.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. But you're looking at edge. You're looking at offensive line. And then after that, I'll see. I'll be curious as anybody else. Yeah. But I think that's where they
after that, then you could just – and it's funny because I know we got to wrap up because I was thinking
Bowers. Or Bowers. I'm throwing Bowers in there.
Yes. I think Bowers is – because, Goddard is – we love Goddard, but every year there's something significant that happens. It's just inevitable. It's just that position. It's the position where you just get beat up. It's almost like the fullback position. But I think it's interesting. I was even thinking you can't even really just use late draft picks on your secondary because you got a lot of pieces that you got to figure out anyway.
Yeah,
like you already have those guys that you're quote unquote developing. So you don't just get more development pieces at the back end when you might just have to use those picks on maybe take a shot at another linebacker or something. There's certain scenario positions that you don't have in spades. And I think at least with the corners, maybe you don't have the top tier guys, but you have enough guys to me in the bullpen that you gotta start figuring out who's a player out of these players.
I mean, you're five right now: Ricks, Ringo, Rogers.
Yep.
Then I'm not going to count Bradbury because I don't believe he's going to be here. Maddox, who has been off injured, so whatever he might be, and then Slay. You've got five guys right now, and then in the second year, you just signed CJ, and then you've got Brown, who's coming off the injury, the rookie who's coming off, and then Blankenship. So you've got 8 dudes already there.
Yeah.
So
you gotta go a different position altogether.
So we'll see.
So, folks, hope you enjoyed the show. We're gonna let you guys go to get ready for tonight's festivities. Again, make sure if you like the show, please hit the like button so we can get on and beat Algae Rhythm. Hit the notification button so that you'll be aware of all the shows as they air, and then you can join us. And again, hit the subscribe button so you can become part of our community. Genuine relationship building. Well, with that, till next time, folks. Peace.
Take care.